Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us here today despite the gloomy weather. I'm Kimberly from The Star, and it is certainly exciting to see a great turnout today. This month, StarLIVE will delve into the topic of men's health. I hope you are excited because today we have a fun and knowledgeable doctor in the house. Joining us here today is consultant urologist Dr. George Lee, or more famously known as Dr. G, thanks to his popular column exclusively on The Star Online. Without further ado, let's welcome Dr. G on stage for his talk on men's health unzipped.
Thank you, Kimberly. That's a very, very kind introduction. I'm not sure whether I deserve that. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. So look at how many people are here. I think we should give each other a round of applause, right? Brilliant. Okay. So when I told, actually, I was very embarrassed when I was asked to do this talk. I kind of said yes. And then when it appeared on the paper, it says Men's Health Unzipped. I get a phone call from my wife and said, your son asked, what are you unzipping? Okay, so are you going to explain it to him? Oh my God, what am I going to say? My son's 14 years old. I'll tell you some stories about my kids. So I just said, Dad, I said, son, I need to tell you about all these things between birds and the bees. And my son said, Dad, these days we just Google it. So don't worry about you telling me things like that. Anyway, it reminds me of another thing, Kimberly earlier on said that, I was featured in TEDx, Does any one of you know what TED is? TED Talk? Yeah? So it's quite a lot of you know, and quite a lot of you don't know. I did not know what TED was, right? So when they called up the clinic and said, can you do a TED Talk? I heard, can you do a sex talk? So come on, that's quite funny. I said, yeah, that's fine. So I turn up, and then they keep calling me and said, are you prepared? Most people needs to kind of like prepare. I said, sex talk, I do this every day. Why should I prepare this? Until I told my daughter, I said, Daddy, this guy called Ted called me up and asked me to do a talk. And my daughter said, TED Talk, they ask you? Why? You're a penis doctor. Right? TED stands for technology, education. It's education, entertainment, and design. So she said, which part is it you? So I turn up. When I turn up, I was terrified. There were like 4,000 people in there, and then they said, look, we're going to broadcast this to 500 million people. I kind of went, really? So I was hearing all these things about space war, robots, and all sorts of things, and I kind of said, you know what? I prepared a sex talk. I might as well give my sex talk. So to show how bad I am with technology, so after the talk, a lot of people enjoyed it. I guess, it's something different from robots and space talks and that sort of thing. One of the girls came to me and said, I really enjoy your talks, so can I do a selfie with you? That's when I looked at her, I said, what? And he said, can I do a selfie with you? And I said, now? Here? And she smiled, she said, I only want to take a picture. So, I said, oh yes, selfie, yes. So I took a selfie with her. At the end of all that, she was leaving the auditorium. I could see her, I was all embarrassed. She said, by the way, what did you have in mind? Come on, that deserves a round of applause, right? Well, I actually, seriously, I thought selfie involves something unzipping yourself. Anyway, today we're not going to talk about selfie, there's a lot of unzipping and things like that. Most people think I'm going to talk about sex, right? Earlier on, I had a wonderful opportunity to mingle with a lot of you. When I talked to some of you, I realized that there's a lot of men here who want to outlive the woman. Yeah, come on. Yeah, you want to outlive the woman? I don't think that's ever going to happen. Right, okay, because we might catch up a little bit, but never going to outlive them. But we're going to work out a strategy. So today, I'm going to point out certain flaws in the system and how we're going to rectify that, and we're going to outlive. Well, not outlive, but catch up. Okay, let's do that. So another thing I need to mention: who listens to BFM? Yeah, right. Okay. Who hears my show on BFM? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. You guys know there's one person who rings up BFM all the time, LTY. Right, okay, right, LTY, right? LTY is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. I will not tell you who it is, right, okay? But I have the privilege to meet LTY today, so I'm very, very pleased. So that's really good. Okay, so some of you may not know me. Earlier on I said that, I have kind of like articles in the Chinese press. I wrote for Xinqiu, I wrote for Nanyang, sometimes I appear on Selamat Pagi Malaysia. And then, sometimes I also don't know what I do for a living anymore. So, I qualified from Cambridge. I did my surgery in Oxford, and afterwards I was a consultant in Imperial College. And when I was a consultant, I had this really amazing secretary. She has this fantastic sense of humor. So when patients ring up the clinic and say, is that neurology? Then my secretary will say, no, it's urology. And then my secretary the patient will say, is it to do with the brain? Then my secretary will say, well, it depends on where your brain is. So, come on, that also deserves a round of applause. That's good, right? Florence is amazing, right? Okay, so maybe she's right, so this is the brain I'm dealing with, and then, most of the people think that's a brain. But today I'm going to wear a different hat. I'm going to have this brain, I'm going to think like a neurologist, because in medicine we always have these kind of like jokes that if you, if you do urology, anything is waist down. Anything that is waist up, is nothing to do with you, don't touch, okay? So, but in urology today, I'm going to use the brain to think a little bit more, okay? So, this is a funny story that I tell a lot of people why I decided to do urology. So when I first decided that I wanted to do urology, at that time, I was in Cambridge doing pharmacology. And pharmacology, basically, for those of you who don't know, it's not pharmacy. It's actually to do with the mutations, research or work and that sort of thing. In Cambridge, I was specifically working on a receptor to see whether we can block release of, secretions. So how dull was that? I was very, very excited about this. But, when I was there, I met this guy called Nigel Bollock, right? A urologist called Nigel Bollock, pretty good, right? Okay, so I met him, and then he gave me an idea about what it's like, being a urologist. So I began to kind of change my mind, but I wanted to do surgery. So I went to Oxford. When I was in Oxford, I wanted to be a transplant surgeon. Right? I said, okay, right, I want to be a transplant surgeon. Until I met this guy called John Dick. So we have Bollock, we have Dick, so we have two urologists now that actually inspired me. And then the interesting things about Dick is that I cycled to his house. Seriously, if you don't believe me, you Google these names. They are famous urologists in the UK, right? Okay. So I cycled to his house in the Cotswolds, when I got to his house, and then it's an amazing house. He's got Aston Martin, he's got Range Rover, he's got Porsche, and then I really was quite impressed. So I went to his house, I said, to this woman who opened the door, and then she said, I'm sorry, John is not around, he's gone hunting. I said, my goodness, and a true English gentleman has gone hunting. When I grow up, I want to be like him. So I said, your dad is so cool. One day, when I grow up, I want to be like him, a urologist. And she said, it's not my dad, I'm the second wife. Okay, that's a good one, right? Okay. That moment I said, I really want to be a urologist. Right? Okay. So the cars and the girls. Okay. Anyway, when I finally went to London, I worked for this guy called Andrew Ball. Right? So we have Dick, we have Ball, we have Bollock. You definitely turn out a urologist. Come on, that's a good one, right? Yeah. Actually, Andrew is a nice guy. He's a fantastic, fantastic urologist. And he tells me something called the gender inequality, right? This is a typical thing we think about, men bully women to say, hey, sex discrimination, what are you talking about? It's because men is the dominant gender in society, So there's a lot of discrimination. A lot of you believe that. Actually, in reality, it's that, women are the compromised gender. Okay, I'm going to show you otherwise, because I think in reality, that may be very different when you look at the facts. So, because this is such a small crowd, and we're going to get intimate, I'm going to ask you lots of questions. This is the part when I actually do a little mingling, we ask you. So, I'm going to ask you a question. No eye contact, big mistake. I'm going to ask you some questions, okay? So, is this your husband? Even if it's not, just say yes anyway. Okay. Just in case, right, someone that recognize you, okay, right, okay. Are men more likely to fall ill than women? Be careful, he's sitting next to you. Do you think he is likely to fall ill than you, or you are more likely to fall ill than him? It's a difficult thing to say.
He is more likely.
Yeah. You are so weak. Okay, right, okay. So in this household, it's the man who is the weaker gender, okay? Eye contact, good idea. But I'm going to ask you a question anyway, right? Okay. Do you know this gentleman? You know him, right? You would rather not. Right, okay, right. So do you think he is likely to fall ill? No, actually, I'm going to ask him. Right, okay. Is your wife likely to fall ill? Remember, you might not be able to go home tonight, right? No, you are more likely to fall ill. You don't deserve to wear trousers, right? That's really bad. You know, we have two weak men here. Okay, we're going to ask some women here, all right? We're going to ask on the other side, you know, what do you think? Okay, so we have lady. Hello, can I just pop in? Oh, this lady is very elegant. Okay, right, okay. I'm going to ask you, do you think that you are the stronger gender or men are the stronger gender? Me, right. That's a definite me. I think that deserves a big round of applause, man. Is anyone here think men are the stronger gender here? It seems like everybody think that women are stronger here. We're more men here, we can say whatever we like, right? Okay, actually, in reality, don't kill me, okay? Don't kill the messenger, all right? This is a statistic taken from a lot of hospitals in the United Kingdom. So if you look at all diseases and all conditions, woman is in pink, man is in blue. Women are actually more likely to fall ill than women. We have a lady sitting there saying, yes, okay, it is true, except for one. If you look at this, the actual, where is it? Nervous system and sense organ, men are more likely to fall ill than women. It's because the woman drives men crazy. That's the reason why, yeah, that's a good one. Come on, it's a round of applause, right? Yeah, okay. So yeah, but everything else, actually men are the stronger gender here. I'm so sorry. I know you're going to hit me with your handbag, but not today, later. Okay, right, okay. However, when you actually look at this, it doesn't take a genius to work out that actually, across the board, see how striking this is. In every single country, women are actually outliving men. In every country by at least 6.5 years. Why? Why is there such a discrepancy? On one hand, we are the stronger gender. On the other hand, we're being compromised in life expectancy. So that's a big question that is my research work is trying to work out what is going on. And that's an interesting thing that you're trying to discover what is going on. Okay, so, yeah, sir, I love this.
Looking at your
The slide, yeah?
it doesn't touch on Asian countries.
Yes, this is when we come in next. Okay, life expectancy last year. Whoa, okay, right. So I planted him in so that he asked me, what is the next question? So we got it now. Okay. So since you asked that question, where do you think Malaysia lies? 1 to 100.
Can you elaborate that?
Yeah, in ranking, number one, it's a country in Asia, which everyone can guess probably is Japan. But Malaysia, where do you think we rank? 60? Pretty good. Higher or lower, sir?
Yes. Maybe about 70.
70, okay. 60, 70 nearly, man? 70s, okay, right. Now, this side is the Singapore question. This side is the Singapore question. So we always like to compare with Singapore, right? Okay. You don't like to compare. You're probably Singaporean, so that's why. Okay, right. So in Singapore ranking, Malaysia is 66 actually. So Singapore ranking? Around 50? Oh, you don't believe that. Okay, Singapore? 75. 75 worse than Malaysia? All right, okay. I tell you, you're going to throw stone in Singapore. Singapore's number 3. Can you imagine? 1965 we were supposed to be equal. Now Singapore is number 3. This is 2014. If you look at this data, for male life expectancy between Singapore and Japan is identical, and Singapore is probably going to be number 1 pretty soon, 87.3 versus 87.0. That's how healthcare has changed in Singapore. Even for the mighty Singapore, they still have that discrepancy between 80 and 87. Can you believe that? So something is very wrong, and something is very wrong that Malaysia is still stuck in 68. And we've been stuck there for many, many years. And it's like occasionally, and even like Brunei was the same with us, and then it's kind of like a, drift away. And then so, this is a very strange thing, but there is no country in the world a man can outlive a woman. Even in Sierra Leone with the Ebola, right? Okay, it can never happen. Okay, so